This is actually very funny. The whole world today is asking about this manifest of names of this, certain private island. Names that involve the most powerful world leaders and billionaires. People are really questioning the morality of those who run their lives. And while all of that is happening, what does the media do? Exactly. Of course, they raise questions about the age of marriage in Islam. The classical red herring fallacy to redirect the attention away from themselves. Even though these acts are strictly forbidden in the Islamic Sharia law and illegal in all Muslim countries on earth, critics still managed to misquote this verse and this hadith and refer to the age of our Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, and his wife to further support their allegation. Subhanallah. This video will be an educational documentary, clearing misconceptions about the marriage laws in Islam, age of marriage according to the Sharia law, and showing how critics misquote the Quran and the Hadith. But first, I have a request. Don't skip around and don't walk away in the middle, because this topic is very, very complex, and watching only part of it will definitely give you the wrong picture. You need the full context. If you're just here for a quick answer, then okay. No, Islam does not support what they claim. You got it. But if you want to know how and why, then let's dive in. I will start with the linguistic barrier. In classical Arabic, the word nikah, or marriage, can actually be used to refer to three distinct life events: the contract, the consent, and the consummation. Context is the only way to know which one is intended. Let me explain. Imagine two righteous men, lifelong friends. One is blessed with a baby boy, the other is blessed with a baby girl. Trusting each other implicitly, the father looks at his friend and says, I know that you're gonna raise your boy in the best way possible, and your boy will be a great man. I want my daughter to marry your son. And his friend agrees. See what happened now? This is called a contract between two fathers. In English, we can call it engagement, promise, I don't know. You come up with a word. But in classical Arabic, we call it nikah. Don't get me wrong, they are not fully husband and wife in the physical sense. They don't live together and they might not even see each other. Yet still, linguistically, it is correct to refer to whatever just happened now with the word nikah, or marriage. But what's important is the next step. Because in this hadith, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, said that consent is mandatory. After they grow up and reach puberty and mental maturity, both of them should be asked, do you want to honor your father's agreement or do you want to annul it? If they say no, the agreement is nullified. But if they say yes, only then does the marriage life begin. In this example, the contract happened at the age of 1, the consent happened at the age of 20, and the consummation happened at the age of 22. Yet, all of these three distinct events are called in classical Arabic nikah, i.e. marriage. And listen to this. Breaking any one of them is called talaq, i.e. divorce. That includes breaking the initial contract. Even though they never touched each other, even though they never even met each other, linguistically, in classical Arabic, we use the word talaq to refer to breaking this father's agreement. So when you're reading books in classical Arabic, take care, because when you see this word nikah or this word talaq, don't immediately assume that they are referring to a full marriage or a broken home. It might just refer to a promise and the cancellation of the promise. One more crucial point. Sheikh Ibn Uthaimeen issued this fatwa, fully prohibiting the father's agreement. He based his fatwa on the harm principle, la darar wa la dirar. Anything that is proven by professionals that it causes physical or psychological harm to the individual or to the society automatically becomes haram in Islam. He said that in this day and age, the agreements of the fathers are really misused and they cause more harm than good. So even this door is closed. Anyway, let's just focus on the important part. Because out of these three stages of marriage, people are mostly concerned about the middle one. They keep asking, at what age exactly does a boy or a girl in Islam become an adult who is capable of giving consent? And here you find a lot of people jokingly say that Muslim scholars are flip-flopping when it comes to the age of consent. Because when you look at Muslim countries today, Qatar, Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, UAE, in all of them, the age of consent is 18. But critics claim that this hadith suggests that it should be 9. And they claim that Muslim scholars are just changing it over time. You know what? It's actually not a bad question. And the simple answer is yes, they are changing it. But not for the reason that you think. Let me explain. According to this verse, Prophet Noah lived roughly 1,000 years. And according to the Bible, Noah lived 950 years. Now imagine if I told you that the age of consent back then for those people at the time of Noah was 300. Yeah, 300 years. From 0 to 100, you're a toddler. From 100 to 300, you're a teenager. And only after 300 years of life, you are considered an adult ready for marriage. Then you retire at the age of 800. You spend the remaining 200 years of your life in peace. Does that sound crazy to you? Maybe. But that is only because many of us, out of ignorance, suffer from a cognitive bias called Presentism. We assume that the human biology has been exactly the same from Adam until today. But both the Quran and the Bible disagree. Both of them tell us that this is absolutely not the case. Today, the average human lifespan is roughly 73 years. Every time our cell divides, our telomeres, the protective caps on our chromosomes, get a little bit shorter. Because of that, there is a hard limit that makes it biologically impossible for us today to live 1,000 years. But according to the Quran and the Bible, the people of Noah were clearly built different. There is a famous story in our tradition that captures this perfectly. It says that a woman came crying to Prophet Noah, peace and blessing be upon him. She said, "My young child died. He didn't even get a chance to live his life." Noah asked her, "How old was he when he died?" She replied, "He was only 300 years old. Poor kid, he died so young." Noah smiled and said, "Do you know that in the far, far future, humans will only live around 60 or 70 years?" The woman was shocked. She said, 60 years only? If my whole life was just 60 years, I would spend all of it in one prostration to Allah. Now think about it. If you went back in time to this specific woman and told her that humans today are getting married at the age of 20, she will think you're crazy. To her, a 20-year-old is just an infant. Got it? Now let's fast forward to a more recognizable period in human history, where we will find the exact opposite. Let's take King Tutankhamun in Egypt, for example. Historical records show that he became the pharaoh of Egypt when he was just 9 years old. He got married in the same year. He ruled the greatest empire on earth before he even hit a double digit. And he died at the age of 18, I think. Comparing that to the people of Noah's time, it seems like we're talking about a completely different species. We see the same pattern, by the way, in our tradition. For example, Amr ibn al-As. He either got married at the age of 9 or 10. But pause for a second. When you think about the wedding of Amr ibn al-As, don't imagine a fourth grader today playing on his iPad. No. He was a man capable of leading, fighting, and providing. Unlike a 9-year-old boy today who is biologically and physiologically different, who is clearly just a child. And it's totally haram and illegal for him to be anything else other than an innocent child. To fully understand this, we have to look at the bigger picture. This isn't just about Islamic history, it's about human history. For example, in the Talmud, specifically this verse, we find historical accounts regarding the household of Prophet David. The text suggests that Bathsheba, the wife of King David, was likely 6 years old when she gave birth to King Solomon. But wait a minute. Solomon was not her first son. She had another son before him, which means that she gave birth to her first child at roughly 5 years old. But wait a minute. King David wasn't her first husband. She was married to Uriah the Hittite before him. If we do the math backward, we will discover that she was married to her first husband at an age that would be shocking for us today. Even if we take the conservative view from the Jewish Encyclopedia, which says that she gave birth to King Solomon when she was 8, and calculate backward to her wedding to Uriah, the math will still point out to a very young age. Now, does that mean that prophets were wrong? Absolutely not. Does it mean that these texts are promoting something evil? No, they are not. It simply proves that the biology and the norms of that era were fundamentally different. Prophet David, to the majority of people on earth today, is a role model. We as Muslims believe that he is a prophet, and according to the book of Acts in the New Testament, Christians also believe that he was a prophet. All what we're doing now is we're putting historical events in their context and judging them within their time frame. According to the Sanhedrin, 3 generations were born in 24 years, and each and every parent begot a child at the age of 8. When King Ahaz died at the age of 36, his 25-year-old son immediately became the king. Now do the math. The age difference between Ahaz and his son is 11 years, which means that he roughly got married at the age of 10 or 9. Also, this verse says that Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he became king. Even Rashi, the most prominent commentator on the Torah, calculates in his commentary on Genesis 25:20 that Rebekah was just 3 years old when she married Prophet Isaac. You can follow these steps to see how he reached that number based on the biblical timeline. Now again, does that mean that Rashi is promoting something evil? Of course not. It simply shows that for thousands of years, the ages were viewed through a completely different lens. It shows that humans back then were biologically and physiologically different. Even in the Catholic Encyclopedia itself, traditional views state that Mary was 12 when she got married to Joseph, who was 90. We, as Muslims, honor and respect all of them. We simply don't judge all of these respectful figures by today's standards. We judge them by the reality of their time. Now someone will say, "Brother, those are all examples from religious books. Are there any examples from secular history?" And the answer is yes, many. Isabella of Jerusalem married Humphrey when she was 10. King Louis XI of France married Charlotte when she was 9. Prince William II married Princess Mary when she was 9. King Henry IV of England married Mary when she was 10. Peter IV of Aragon married Queen Maria when she was 8. And check this out. David II of Scotland married his wife Joanne when he was 4 and she was 7. And here are more examples that you can go through. Historian Wynne Duran records in his book The Story of Civilization that typical ages of engagement and marriage in Europe were often 4, 6, or 7-year-old. For example, Gruz was 4-year-old when she got married. Later her husband died and she got married to another man when she was 6. The famous poet Victoria Colonna was betrothed when she was just 4 years old. Now someone might say, "Brother, these are all examples from the Dark Ages. What about a closer era in human history?" And you know what? You ask and I deliver. According to Professor Stephen Robinson from University of Sydney, Australia, in the 1500s, England wanted to set the age of consent to 10 or 11. But most of England's North American colonies adopted the younger age. Nations like Portugal, Spain, Denmark, and the Swiss cantons had the age of consent set to 10, then 12, then raised it to 13, and only in the last century, it was raised to 16. This table shows how age of consent laws in different states changed over time. Russia, for example, historically it was 10, then it became 14, then 16. In California it was 10, and then it became 18. In Delaware it was 7. That was in 1880, not very long ago. So look at the timeline. Whether it's King Tutankhamun from Egypt, or the lineage of the prophets in the Holy Land, or the history of the Arabs, or the people in the Dark Ages, or the Americans in the 1880s, all the numbers are shocking by today's standards. But if we get rid of the bias of presentism, we discover that the history of human race wasn't consistent. Biology was different, maturation was different, and judging them by the standards of today is simply uneducated and unfair. If we fast forward to 2026, we will find that humans develop much slower than before. A 10 years old today is biologically and physiologically a child. They definitely cannot consent. And honestly, even some 20 years olds today are still discovering what it means to be an adult. Islamic scholars today, looking at the reality of our time, have set new standards. In most Muslim countries, the law sets the minimum age at 18. Others set it at 16. This is why we should replace the original question. Instead of asking about the age of consent, how about we ask about the conditions of consent? The question should be, what is the criteria that if met, only then the person is considered an adult? Only then he can get married. And when we ask the correct question, we will be on the right track. And the answer is there is two conditions: puberty and maturity. One of them is not enough. Puberty is self-explanatory, but maturity is what gets tricky because it is different from one society to another and from one individual to another. For example, a 30-year-old man who doesn't have a job spends most of his time watching TikToks and playing video games. This man didn't meet the maturity requirement yet and still cannot get married. But another man who is much younger than him, who hit puberty but helps run his family business, is a much better candidate as he proved that he can provide and lead. Age is just a number. What is really important is meeting these two conditions. And when you apply those conditions to different societies in different eras in human history, you will get different numbers for the average age of adulthood. Scholars are not changing the religion. They are applying the timeless law Allah gave us that fits every part of human history, linking consent to conditions that has to be met rather than just a random number that might change from one generation to another. A number that if fits one generation wouldn't fit the other one. And this is the mistake that a lot of people fell in while thinking about the age of our Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, and his wife. If you fell in it, don't feel bad, because whoever presented it to you, they knew exactly what they were doing. They chose to quote only one hadith and leave the rest of the book, and then misapply it to today's society. To fix this mistake, you simply have to take the whole teachings of Islam or to leave the whole teachings of Islam, but you can't take one hadith. Take the whole human history the way we believe in it and keep everything in context, or just don't believe in the whole story. Both At-Tirmidhi and Al-Baghawi reported that our mother radiallahu anha said that girls in her society back then reached the biological status of adulthood by the age of 9. In this book, As-Sunan Al-Kubra, Al-Hasan ibn Salih reported that his neighbor became a grandma when she was 21. Grandma. In this book, A'lam al-Nubala, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i reported to have witnessed himself most of the women in Yemen menstruating by the age of 9. Those humans were different than us today. Instead of just looking for a number, what's really important is to follow the rules. No marriage consummation and no consent before meeting the two conditions. We don't fixate on a number, we follow the criteria. We defer to the medical and psychological experts to determine when those two conditions are met in any given society. If the science says it's 18 today, then the standard is 18. If after 1,000 years the science says it's 30 years old, then okay, the standard will be 30 years old. And regarding the verse that critics love to quote, the surprise is, the verse is not telling Muslims who to marry to begin with. It's not a command or even a recommendation regarding choice of wife. It is simply saying what to do in case that is already the case. Let me explain. The structure of the verse they are quoting is exactly the same as the structure of this verse. O believers, if you are already in a state of intoxication, don't pray. The verse is not saying that you should be intoxicated. On the contrary, we know that this behavior is haram from other verses and other hadith. But here Allah is telling us what to do if it happened already. The wording in Surah At-Talaq is exactly the same. It says that if you are already married to any of these three types of women, and if you already got divorced, this is what you should do. The verse isn't a recommendation on who you should marry, it's a regulation for a situation that already existed. Also note that the word an-nisa explicitly refers to adult women. If you are in doubt of that, you can go back to the original sources. Open this book, Lisan al-Arab by Ibn Manzur, and read the definition of the word itself to be 100% sure that it exclusively refers to adult women. So, sorry to disappoint you, but no. Muslims don't support whatever you claim. Islam holds the protection of the innocent as a sacred priority. What was a biological reality centuries ago is not a license to ignore the legal and physiological protections required for children today. And regarding the famous question about this hadith, which mentions playing with toys, they claim that only young people play with dolls. Well, what about this ugly doll that exceeded 100 million units in sale in 2025, with the target audience that is mostly females ages from 18 to 35? The limited editions of this doll were sold for more than 30 grand for some reason. And by the way, here are grown men playing with toys and even dressing themselves up like the toys in the cosplay culture. In this hadith, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, was engaging in a light-hearted racing game with his wife, highlighting the importance of emotional bonding and shared activities. And I am no different. I personally enjoy the strategy and challenge of video games on my weekends. It's a reminder that the human need for recreation and play is universal, regardless of your age or the era. And while we are on this topic, I am actually looking for help. I need a knowledgeable scholar to explain a couple of things to me. The first one is a quote from Saint Thomas Aquinas, the angelic doctor, the great philosopher of the Catholic Church, because his work, the Summa Theologica, is the foundational pillar of Western laws, ethics, and theology, or at least has been for centuries. And whatever Aquinas said was treated as the final word of truth for millions of Christians. But when I read his writings, I found this paragraph that I couldn't understand. He said, word by word, that if two parties married before the age of puberty and they had marital consummation, their marriage is nonetheless perpetually indissoluble, meaning it's a valid marriage and cannot be cancelled or divorced. I am really looking for someone to explain to me the logic behind this ruling. My second question is about a legal debate in the Sanhedrin, specifically this verse. Let me read it word by word because I don't want to misquote it. It says, if a man unwittingly engaged in a marital act with a 3-year-old girl who was already married to another man, he is liable to bring a sin offering, but there is no liability to receive the death penalty based on a majority. I'm seeking help understanding the logic behind this ruling too. And finally, I have a question for you guys, the viewers. If this island that sparked all of this curiosity was actually owned by a Muslim, or if all of those world leaders and billionaires who were going to the island were Muslim, what do you think Western media will be talking about 24/7? How would their narrative change? Would they be blaming individuals, or would they be attacking the entire religion? I will read all of your comments one by one. If you think this context matters, share this video with someone who knows only one side of the story. And if you want to know how the inheritance laws of Islam is completely just to both the boy and the girl, check out this video. جزاكم الله خيرا. Salam alaikum.